Today, my guest is author Wendy Burden. We will be talking to her about her new book, Dead End Gene Pool, a memoir from Gotham Books and imprint of Penguin Books. Wendy is the great-great-granddaughter of Cornelius Vanderbilt. Now, the Vanderbilts were one of the richest blue blood families in New York, but in 1955, the year Wendy was born, the family auctioned everything off in a 4-day sale at Park Bernay Auction House. Now, Wendy has an interesting background. She's a former illustrator, zookeeper, taxidermist, owner and chef of the bistro Chez Wendy, and the art director of a pornographic magazine from which, her bio tells us, she was fired for being too tasteful. She lives in Portland, Oregon, and we're speaking to her by telephone. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. I wish you were in studio, but it's nice to have you on the phone.
Yeah, it is, and I wish I was there, too. I'm sure the weather's much better.
Well, it's a little chilly today, but it is much better. Wendy, let's start right out with you giving my audience a brief overview of your memoir.
Well, it's basically a book about the downward spiral of my family. It sort of has to do with their intellectual downfall as well as their financial downfall, and I think downfall might be too harsh a term, but we're a family that was overfunded and overserved, decidedly, and we haven't sort of kept up the way other families have, and so it's kind of a story about me growing up within this highly dysfunctional family, and observing it, and my father died when I was very young, and my mother was pretty much in absentia, and my two brothers and I were raised predominantly by my grandparents, meaning by my grandparents' staff. So there's a lot of stories about that, and so that's essentially what it's about.
Well, we're going to get into some more specifics about it, and the first thing that I would like to know is, do you feel that you ever resolve the issues with your out-of-the-scene mother?
Resolve the issues in what way?
Well, the fact that she basically wasn't around for you, that had to affect you in many ways.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and I think one of the ways I resolved those issues was to be a really hands-on, there all the time mother for my children, to the point where I'm probably suffocating them with love and affection. But and in the writing of the book, I went into the writing of it just assuming she was the culprit and somewhat responsible, like 99% responsible for my father's suicide, which is a terrible thing to think of anybody. And then at the end of the book, and it took me almost 8 years to write, I wasn't blaming her so much anymore. I was understanding her more.
With you?
Yeah, I was married. Boy, we were married probably 4 years, and then separated for a zillion years because nobody could be bothered to go get a divorce. And my two daughters grew up basically with me. I moved to Oregon afterwards and married a man named Tiger Warren, and my children moved with me. And I have now one daughter lives with me, my 24-year-old, just because she hasn't quite left the nest, but and the other one goes to school at St. Andrews in Scotland. So she lives with me in the summers sometimes.
And you keep a place in New York, do you? You have an apartment in New York?
Just for this year, I've attempted to be bi-coastal, but it's ungodly expensive. And
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I signed the lease on the apartment, I was smitten with Portland love again, and I love the Northwest, and so it's hard because I'm a real New Yorker, but I really love Portland, and I'm very close with my in-laws here. So
well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned it in the book, otherwise I wouldn't bring it up. But and in the PR material that was sent out, you suffered a terrible personal tragedy in your second marriage, and would you share that with us?
Oh well, my husband died in a plane crash. He went out to actually go shoot a goose with his three sons one Thanksgiving, and I was very worried about having to pluck it and prepare it. And they were taking off from the Columbia River, and very we don't really know what it was, but I'm a pilot too, so I thought about it, as has everybody in the last 10 years, and they'd clocked a wind at the Bonneville Dam at a very high velocity, and the plane it flipped over and crashed into the river, and everybody died. So
yes, it's
awful,
terrible,
horrible.
It's hard to imagine, and I'm so sorry to read that, and it has to have been horrible.
Horrible and for the poor, my husband's ex-wife, who was the mother of the three boys. I don't know how anybody would ever get over losing one child, let alone three. Mm-hmm. So it was just an unspeakable tragedy for everybody.
Yes. Let's get on to, again, other issues in the book. How did you fare financially as a result of your grandparents selling everything off? Of course, that was the year you were born, so you weren't aware of it when you were a child. But, I mean, did that affect you as an adult, or were you still comfortable?
No, the funny thing is, like, and that part at the end of the prologue where I say that it was more, they sold off the really good real estate and all the beautiful furnishings so that they could invest it in different things, and nobody had an interest in living that way. My grandfather was a very modern man, and so he took the money from the Renoirs or whatever and went out and bought five-eyed Picasso portraits. And,
oh my!
Yeah, and nobody wanted to live that way anymore. They didn't want the house with 120 rooms and the staff of 200. Although, actually, I think secretly my grandfather did.
200 staff. I have to repeat that figure. 200 staff. That is
it was
mind-boggling.
A huge place. I know. Where they had. I remember my going to dinner with my great-grandmother when I was very, very young, and there was a footman that stood behind each chair. I mean, think of the staff involved in serving a meal to 8 people. That would be 25.
Yeah, that's like how Queen Elizabeth lives in the palace. Yeah. I mean, that's yes, it's hard to imagine living like that, and probably it's even more difficult these days because of the cost of maintaining that. So you never felt like you were suffering in any way. It's obvious in the book. I mean, you had a ball.
No, I had so much fun. I mean, there was some parts that obviously weren't so much fun, but and any sort of expenditure, any situation I've landed myself into because of unwise spending is my own fault. I have nobody to blame but myself.
Well, I guess we'd have to say you didn't know any better because you had unlimited.
Nobody taught me, that's for sure, and I did have a couple of expensive marriages, so now I'm really smart. So.
Well, that's really good. Well, now you were a strange little child. You had certainly ways of doing things, and you were enamored with. You wanted to be a funeral director, didn't you?
I wanted to be Wednesday Addams. I wanted to go into mortuary science, but just for a while. And then I just had this sort of fascination with morbidity, and I don't need a shrink to tell me that it probably had something to do with my father dying pretty young and me trying to figure out the whole death thing.
How do you feel that you developed as a person and as an adult as a result of some of the strange goings on with your grandparents and your mother, and then, as you have already stated, the horrible loss of your father to suicide? You felt that might have explained your fascination with the macabre.
Well, I think I think one of the reasons that I am a survivor, such a survivor, and have not been as damaged as I could be by such a dysfunctional family, is because I was left alone, and there weren't a lot of expectations put on me, predominantly because I was a girl, and in my family, boys ruled. So I was independent, and also because I was largely ignored, and because there was a notable lack of affection, I sought out other role models and other sort of mentors in terms of parental figures or family figures, and I think that saved me. I mean, I had some grown-ups that I really, really looked up to and sought advice from and found warmth and love with. So.
Well, that was great. And you were still just a child when your father died, weren't you?
I was 6. I
was
6 years old. Yeah.
And
nobody told us what it was.
Well, that I mean, I think that's another thing that people respond to in reading about it. The poor kid, no one even told the children about it and just sent you off to school. And I suppose that's partly the way that grown-ups thought about handling issues, horrible issues like that with the children, just keep it from them. But I certainly felt bad when I read that. And but now you had the strength, but your younger brothers had difficulties. One was an addict, and one an alcoholic. And is it your strength of character, even as a child, that you feel helped you to escape the same fate, and the adults that you related to?
Yeah, and also just genealogically, I just think that the girls, and we are far and few between, we didn't have that manic depressive sort of tendency. And both my brothers are bipolar. My father was bipolar. My father's brother is bipolar. And I am not. So that helps me immensely.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, is that something that is just passed on in the male gene? I mean, I don't know anything about that. Were you ever told anything about that that's how you were able to escape?
No, but I mean, that's something that I didn't have to be told. I mean,
right.
Once people knew what bipolarism was, I mean, it used to be called manic depression.
Right.
And when my father was suffering from it, in the late 50s and the early 60s, they didn't have a name for it. They just prescribed uppers and downers, and
right.
Even going to talk to a psychiatrist was sort of a novel thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the people that I personally know who are afflicted with it tend to be male, so
yeah,
maybe I'm assuming something I shouldn't.
Well, it would be. I'm interested in exploring that. That's an interesting point. And you also mentioned earlier too, there were high expectations put on the men. They
yes.
were expected, even though they were able to play and have a lot of fun and not really work hard, they still had certain expectations put on them, and you,
yes,
as the girl, were unimportant in their minds.
No.
So
I was expected just to look good and
right.
to marry well. So.
Right. Well, I'm going to ask you now, because there were a few strange things. Maybe strange isn't the right word to use, but some of the habits of your grandparents and their families. And I'm just wondering if you, as a child, would view something and see something and say to yourself, well, that's really weird. Or even now as an adult, when you think back, is there some issues that occurred that you viewed as the most bizarre? I have my own feeling in what I was reading in the book, but I'd like to hear that from you.
Well, I think their drinking was incredible. Like my grandfather, the way he would, and I describe it in the book, the way he would get out of his chair and go over and fill up a highball glass with wild turkey at 10 in the morning and drink it off. And
instead of orange juice.
Put the glass back on the shelf, and then go sit down like he'd gotten up to get a sip of water.
Yeah.
Not a, 8 ounces of bourbon.
Right. But you didn't think, were you aware of that as a child? Did you think that was strange,
Yeah.
or that was just the way they were?
I thought it was very strange.
See,
and
I think
and
that's
also,
interesting.
I also thought it was not strange, but sort of awful the way I was always told to be quiet, and I was always sort of pushed out of the picture when my grandfather wanted
Right.
my brothers in the picture. But I, on the other hand, I was an incredibly obnoxious, precocious child.
You were.
I know.
But I liked you.
Oh, that's nice to know. But it was, it was also, I looked up sort of the byproducts of coming from a dysfunctional family, and one of them, of course, is addiction and all kinds of things like that. But trying to get attention is another, and I think that was definitely my.
Well, but a lot of kids are like that, and they're not necessarily from the same great wealth that you came from. So maybe you were just that kind of kid and very creative.
I was.
But I thought too that was it an uncle that you had that was so enamored with anything Nazi?
Yes.
That was a little weird.
Uncle Ham. Yeah. He says everything twice, so we call him Uncle Ham. Uncle Ham. And he's very sweet, and also, he doesn't have bipolarism. He has now finally been diagnosed with Asperger's, but extreme Asperger's, and he's off the Hitler kick, and into talk shows now. So.
Oh. Well, Asperger's, I think, is, as I recall, that's something that a classification that hasn't been around for that long.
No, not long at all.
Yeah.
And it's a form of autism.
Yes.
But the poor man, I mean, my grandparents they shoveled Thorazine into him for years, and it's so sad that people weren't diagnosed correctly with things then.
Yeah, well, they, the powers that be that were involved in doing all that, they didn't know themselves.
No, medically, they didn't know. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
It was a big guess. But now you traveled all over the place with your grandparents. They had homes everywhere. Where were some of the homes?
Well,
just
they had the main abode was on Fifth Avenue. They lived on 63rd and Fifth in a big apartment, and then they had a weekend house in Westchester County in Mount Kisco. And then in the winter and spring, they went to Hope Sound, Florida, on Jupiter Island, and in the summers, they had this amazing house that Wallace Harrison designed in Northeast Harbor on Mount Desert Island in Maine.
Wow. And they were all huge, weren't they? They weren't any little tiny cottages.
Nothing small for us.
And did they have separate staffs in each of these places, or did the staff travel with them?
They did. Some of the staff traveled, like the chef, obviously.
Yeah.
And certain of the maids and the butler. But, for instance, in Maine, there was always there was the gardener and all of his staff, and then there was the caretaker, and then there would be additional summer help brought on because they entertained so much. And the same went for the Florida house and the country house.
And who was the woman that basically took care of you? What staff member was that? I forget her name.
Well,
she did all of the Christmas shopping. You were kind of shocked. You followed her one day.
Ann Rose.
Yes.
She was the social secretary.
Social secretary. Mm-hmm.
And she did not travel with them. She basically stayed in New York, but she had been hired originally as a nanny as an au pair for my grandmother's youngest son, and then she just sort of stayed on. And she just got the brunt of everything. She was.
Tell the story about your following her at Christmas, pre-Christmas time.
Yeah, I saw her going down the street, and I was walking my grandmother's dogs, and which nobody should have allowed me to do, and saw her going into FAO Schwartz and into Tiffany and Von Witteler, and came to the realization that she was the one that did all the shopping for Christmas.
What a shock.
It was a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
But we bonded over it in a funny way. She was a very sad, sort of unfortunate and but wonderful woman.
And they didn't leave her anything in their wills, did they? Or they?
Well, she died before then.
Was that right? Yeah.
You haven't gotten to that point.
No, I haven't gotten to that point.
I just blew that one for you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not sure. Maybe I did get to that point and just didn't remember it, because I did kind of flip through different chapters.
She dies in a spectacular way. So
don't tell me that. Okay, so because all right, that I don't know, so I don't want to know that yet. Well, what are the conclusions that you reached through writing this memoir? You said it took you 8 years, and what did you, at the end of it, what did you think about your life and growing up and your adulthood?
Well, I should first explain that I started writing this as a cookbook, and then I became extremely anecdotal, and then various family members started dying, and then which prompted me to start writing more and more about my family. And then when my husband died, that's when it really became sort of more in depth. So what I've learned from it has been just, almost an entire lifetime all over again. And
I bet.
I've just learned that you can never understand people. Your first impressions, even if you've grown up with somebody, you can never really know them. And you have to always have an open mind to the way you think about them.
Was it painful for you going through the process and reliving things?
It was. And actually, this book is the first third of the entire manuscript. So it was painful going through. Well, obviously, when I write about my husband's death and everything.
Well, yes.
But I'm not the kind of person that obviously dwells on pain, and I'm always looking forward.
That's your strength.
Very rarely looking back. Yeah. So it was cathartic, in as far as I get cathartic, but it was more intellectually. It was really satisfying.
Well, that's good to know. And you are working on another book. And what is the theme of that book that you're working on?
It's a New Yorker moving to Portland.
Oh, great.
Learning how to fly airplanes.
That's good.
Great love and great loss. So.
Yeah. And you are enjoying, you said you love living in Portland, and here you are, this big city girl. And
well, I love it. First of all, I love being able to drive everywhere. It's just so wonderfully convenient. And I'm a car freak, but I love the Northwest, and I live on the edge of a huge park, and it's just, it's my nature girl side.
Well,
it's a very livable city.
Sounds great. Before we have to leave, I do want to ask you, where was your restaurant, the Chez Wendy? Where was that?
It was in Seal Harbor, Maine, which is on Mount Desert Island.
That's where your grandparents had their home.
Yes, and so I knew that I couldn't fail because there were so many wealthy people there who had to let their chefs have at least one night off a week. And it was a great place to have a seasonal restaurant because I had 2 small children.
Well, I think we're going to end with that, and I hope maybe someday you do write a cookbook, because I think that would be interesting for everybody. So it is time for us to go, and I hope you will come back and join me on your next book, Wendy.
I would love to.